Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Druski, a Cryptic Warfare and Conspiracies podcast. And as you guys well know, or you guys hear, Zook isn't here today, so I'm flying solo today. But it's all good. Yeah, Zook's at work right now, so you know how it is. You guys got to bring home the bacon, so you guys got to do what you got to do. Anyways, yeah, guys, we have a awesome episode today for y'all, guys. I got a special guest on here. She has her own podcast, but her name's AKA Deplorable Janet. So, anyways, guys, I'm gonna read a brief bio on her real quick before we get started. Okay, Miss Janet. Okay, she is a retired nurse, a medical school teacher. She has worked in the medical industry most of her life. She's done billing, collections, home health care, and has been an autopsy assistant. That's pretty cool. Pretty sad too, but it's pretty cool though. I always like that
Mhm.
stuff. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So since retiring, she spent time in the holistic health area. What's pretty cool is my wife's on that now. So good stuff, guys. You guys want to learn that stuff? Hit her up. Listen to her podcast. And anyways, yeah, she makes a lot of different products for people who need them at no charge. Our podcast was created around a kind of online therapy sessions, if that makes any sense. And she talks to people about their mental health, traumas, PTSD, and then medical conditions and addictions and all that. And I got a good guy you should talk to too, Kevin. I'm sure you heard of Kevin from Where the Weird Ones Are podcast.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, yeah, he's a big advocate for like mental health and trauma and PTSD and all that stuff. So yeah, good guy. Holla, Kevin. Love you, bro. And then she also talks about conspiracies and dives into that a little bit. So, but anyways, yeah, God is very important to her and his path for all of us and gifts, and He has blessed her. And you know, like I said, I'm very honored to have her on the podcast right now. And guys, let's welcome Miss Janet. How you doing?
Hello, hello. I'm so super excited to be here and be able to talk with you today.
All right, all right. Well, just we're just gonna hit the freaking ground running. Let's do this. So,
Sweet.
okay, so let's start from the beginning. So, what got you into doing this?
Well, I have a very good friend that was on a large podcast, and he kept trying to get me to come on when the whole um, scandal went on a couple of years ago.
Talking about the
Um, the convent stuff.
gotcha. Okay.
Don't want you to get banned.
Uh,
And
okay. Okay.
so he kept trying to get me to come on and talk about it, and I'm like, "Oh, come on now, nobody's gonna wanna listen." And so I ended up being a guest on the show, and that morphed into a co-host for, like 7 episodes or something,
That's
and then I
awesome.
was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna do this on my own because, I wanna do it around my schedule, and I wanna do what I wanna do." And so, yeah, that's what made me start my own. I'm not, uh, I'm not a stranger to talking, from teaching and stuff like that. So I thought, what better way to get out like what I want to say? And podcasting is kind of therapeutic and cathartic for you as a host.
Hmm.
So,
Oh yeah, 100% on that for
yep,
sure. Not only that, it really does build up like a community of people, you know,
absolutely.
that you gel with, you resonate with, and I'm not gonna lie, like doing this for the like year and a half, but I've made a lot of good friends.
Exactly. It's like a big family,
It
and
is.
people look out for each other, and, people, like, send you somebody that they think they would be great for your show and stuff, and you get to learn. Like, some of my best friends are actually people I met podcasting.
Mhm.
Shout out Miss Heidi. So,
Heidi Love. Yeah,
gotta
she's
love the
awesome.
love, yes.
Yeah, she's
So
awesome.
the podcast has changed a lot, like, since I first started, because when I started, it was, kind of political and news stories and stuff like that, and I'm like, "This is so boring to me, this is not me," and so it kinda moved into just hearing people's personal stories and sharing, like, medical things that they went through or traumas or you know, emotionally hard times or addiction and stuff like that. And so it kind of turned into um, like a place for people to be able to share and also to get like therapeutic wellness out of being able to have vulnerable conversations. So,
Oh yeah, that definitely helps out.
mhm,
Yeah, I actually helped out with Celebrate Recovery. I don't know if you heard of that.
mhm,
Yeah, I helped that out for a couple of years. I actually went through the whole 12-step program,
mhm,
and yeah, just hearing that and people's stories and stuff, like
right,
it's like you said, like community, and that's the one thing people have a hard time with if they're isolated,
mhm.
you know.
Well,
And
and
then
that's I
yeah,
was
go ahead.
gonna say that's something that you'll see a lot in, veterans or people that have had, like, struggling with mental health issues or whatever, is that feeling of isolation,
Mhm.
and, like, nobody gets them. Nobody else feels the way that they do. Nobody has seen or experienced what they've seen or experienced, and so letting them know that there's a place where they can go to, like, just get out their emotions and their feelings and maybe get to the root cause of what started them down the path of addiction or depression or, whether it's repressed childhood memories or whatever it may be. So, it's very helpful for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I agree. And for anybody out there that doesn't think, oh, no one's going through the same thing as me, they are. There's a lot of people out there
Mhm.
going through that. And for me, being prior law enforcement, like I'm being open and honest, I still go through therapy. I
Oh,
still
yeah,
I still do that,
absolutely.
like once a month, if not every other week, for like my PTSD and stuff like that. So,
Right.
and guys are in the military I worked with and stuff. And yeah, man, just
Mhm.
the hardest part is taking that first step.
Right. Because when people experience things like that, they wanna put up a wall. And it's kind of like a wall of protection because you've seen things and gone through things that it's really hard for somebody else to comprehend that's never had that kind of experience or never seen those kind of traumatic events or witnessed, you know, dead bodies or, you know, things of that nature. It's so isolating for people to be in that situation and feel like they need to repress those memories down and
Yeah.
not say anything because you'd be better off not bringing up yourself and everybody around you would be better off, and that can't be further from the truth.
Yeah, and that's one thing I totally 100% agree with. And with helping out with CR and stuff, I noticed
Mhm,
my bread and butter was just anybody who was in first responder when it comes to military, the
mhm,
medical field,
mhm.
firemen, police officers, stuff like that. We all
Absolutely.
have the same mindset, and like you said, that's the thing. Like with like the general public, they don't get our sense of humor.
Mhm.
They don't.
It's
It's
very
very
dark.
dark. Yeah, it's very dark. Yeah, yeah. But it's funny though, is that once we know and find out someone has that, we kind of latch to them, And but
Mhm.
yeah, just have like that community. But for anybody out there who's listening who isn't, wasn't a part of that, like don't be judging anybody. Just try to walk a mile in their shoes and think, the
Right,
stuff they went through. So it's kind
right.
of who they are. It is what it is. But
Yeah, and it changes you emotionally when you experience something like that you've never experienced before. It's very traumatic, and sometimes it takes a massive toll on you, not just emotionally, but also physically,
mhm,
because we store our negative emotions at a cellular level in our body.
yeah,
And so when those are not brought up, they're not confronted, those emotions aren't dealt with or worked through, that festers in your system, and that makes a whole host of other physical, I'm not gonna say ailments because ailments aren't really a thing,
mhm,
but you putting your body in a state of dis-ease,
mhm.
right? Disease, dis-ease is what it
Yeah.
actually is. And I was gonna say, with the dark sense of humor thing, because I've asked people or people have asked me before about being an autopsy assistant. I am not a serial killer by any means, but I love gory, bloody,
Yeah.
gutty stuff. That is my thing. Like, being a nurse, if you put me in OB, I would hate that so much, or like something monotonous where you have to do the same thing all the time. That. I like trauma response, and I like stuff like that. It's fascinating, and when they were like, "Hey, do you wanna be an autopsy assistant?" I'm like, "Yes."
Sign me up, she said.
Yeah, and people are like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "It is so cool, though, to
Yeah.
be able to actually, like, take the organs out of somebody's body and, like, look at them and stuff." It is just it's cool to me. I know some people think that's not cool, but
Yeah. It's nature of the beast. It is what it is.
yeah,
Like you said, like, 6 sense of humor, but I think that's also too like a coping mechanism too. But
right.
like with us, like when I was on SWAT and law enforcement, we go to like a crack house or a trap house or something, and
Yep.
we get into a gunfight or something, and someone's out there with their guts on the floor, and my buddy was like, "Man, who's hungry?" Just just
Exactly.
stupid stuff like that. Like,
Hamburger, yeah.
yeah, I know. It's like,
I
man,
and it's awful because people are like, "That is so inappropriate, it's so wrong," but that is your almost comedic way of dealing
yes,
with the emotional trauma that you're experiencing, and I
yeah,
will tell you firsthand that, like, a lot of people who sign up to be doctors or nurses or, CNAs or medical assistants or whatever, they they go into it with the sole reason of, like, helping people, right? That's what the usual response is. "Why do you wanna be this?" To help people. And then when they start going through, like, clinical rotations where they actually have to deal with people and all of the disgustingness that comes with being a human being, they're like, "Oh, this is not for me," right?
well, they
They
have their whole
completely
Hollywoodized way of
changed their
looking at
mind.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
they don't think about the big picture, like, because that's just
right,
another form of helping.
right,
Getting in there, getting your freaking arms dirty and stuff, getting in the
right.
muck, dealing with that.
You're definitely not just gonna be putting on a Band-Aid on somebody as a nurse, you're gonna
Yeah,
see, like, things that you wish you never saw or smelled, like, ever again.
yeah.
So, part of it, but
Oh,
people
yeah.
don't think that far ahead.
Yeah, it's funny seeing people's reactions too, though, that wanna do the job, but they get there and they're like, "Nope."
Mhm.
It's like, it's all good, because, those certain jobs are not for everybody.
No, mm-mm. No, and some people that, pass out at the sight of blood or pass out at, like, somebody else threw up, and so they start throwing up too. That's like a whole thing that you're gonna have to deal with. I'll tell you a funny story. This is, I worked at a teaching facility, as a nurse, and so we had a lot of different students come through, doctors, nurses, phlebotomists, literally everything. And the doctor that I worked with for so long, and he was like, "Okay," he's like, "Take" I'm gonna call this guy John,
Yeah.
who was a doctor student. He's like, "Take John, into this room and set up for this, cyst excision." And it's a sebaceous cyst. They fill up with, like, dead skin cells and, like, pus, and then they fester, and it stinks, and it's gross, and they're under a lot of pressure. And so I set everything up. I'm telling him what we're gonna do, and so the doctor comes in, and he starts to make an excision, and I told the Doctor John, I'm like, "You might wanna scoot off, to the side. Don't stand directly over that because the wounds are pressurized, like I said before," and he's like, "You're just a nurse. What do you know?" He's like this, looking over the
Boom!
patient. The other doctor cuts it open, squirted out, went right in his mouth.
Oh, nice.
Dude went right outside the patient room and yacked up his whole entire lunch from his toes all the way up out in the hallway. And
Got him.
afterwards afterwards, I think he was expecting me to come out of the room and go, "Are you okay?" and I didn't
We got
because,
time for that.
he sassed me for being a nurse, and
Yep.
I said, "Hey, when you're done vomiting," I'm like, "the spill kit's in the back in the cabinet," and I'm like, "You're gonna wanna clean up your puke."
Cheers to that. Yeah. Roger that.
I love stuff like that, though, and it's just like, that's another thing. I mean, I love stuff like that because it's gross, like Doctor Pimple Popper is on TV now,
Dude,
like
I love that
squeezing
show.
yeah, squeezing stuff. Now my husband, he will literally pass out looking at stuff like that, but I'm like, "Oh my I wish I was doing that. That's so cool."
Well, it's funny because me and my family we were actually like so addicted to that show at the time. So it got
Mhm.
so it, it got so bad. My oldest daughter, she's gonna be 16, but she's like looking at people, Dad, I think that person's got a hematoma.
Uh-huh. Right? Yeah, and that's see, growing up, like, when my daughter was little, I used to watch shows like, Trauma, Life in the ER, and stuff like that that are, like
Yeah.
another 48 hours about gang slayings or whatever. So she always grew up with that, and I thought maybe that would deter her from going in the medical field, but she went in the medical field too, and so is our son, and I'm like,
Oh, okay.
Who woulda known that that's
So do they
that's what
do
they're gonna do?"
so do they do like the same thing, nurse, doctor? Like what do they do in the medical field wise?
Our son is going to be a doctor, and, my daughter is actually a social worker and therapist, and she works for addiction.
Good for them.
Mhm.
That's
Yep,
awesome. Good for them.
yep. So, but yeah, they grew up watching, like, gross stuff on TV with us because, you know, good parenting.
There you go. There you go.
Have some popcorn while we're watching these disgusting zits and stuff be popped,
And oh, mom, I feel like caramel in my popcorn now.
right?
So when you're in the medical field, how long did you do that for?
I have been in the medical field since I was 16 years old.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so that's why I've worked like the gambit of pretty much everything you can do in the medical field and, worked in a hospital like my entire life until I actually went into a classroom to teach because I was teaching on site at the, teaching hospital that I
Mhm.
worked at. And I'm going with the nursing students and the doctors and everybody that came through and showing them, teaching them, patient bedside manners and etiquette and proper procedures and, stuff like that. And then from there, going into a classroom, and so that, came at a good time, with all the COVID stuff that
Oh, the jab. Yeah.
I said the C word, with all the stuff that came down the pike because, I was lucky enough to get out of that before I was forced to take that.
That's okay. Cool. I'm glad you clarified that because I was actually going
Mhm.
to jump into that. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yep,
Well, same here. I didn't take the jab. I was hardcore against that. And
yep, same.
yeah.
I actually, kept my license for a very long time, and then when that came out and they are forcing all these people to get it and stuff, I'm like, "Nah, you can have my license, I will surrender my license because I never foresee a world where I'm going to go back into that. Nope. I loved it, but I will not, that's why I do holistic stuff for myself and for other people at my house. I will
Yeah.
never go back to work for somebody. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Not only that, like holistic living too. And need to me, that's the way like God created it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Right.
Um, and yeah, with the whole jab thing, like I think that was like because with our podcast, I try to go like we talk about conspiracies, cryptids, and all that and stuff, and
Mhm.
people's. I go about every. I always try to bring it back to the Bible and what it says and everything. And
Right.
to me, the whole thing with the whole jab situation, I was like, I was watching people at my church, watching people in the public,
Mhm.
my friends, they were folding quick,
Right.
folding over. I'm like, God, open your eyes. You guys see what's going on? To me,
Right.
this is just a practice run
Right.
of. my opinion of what the
For
mark of
more
the beast.
nefarious things to come.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you guys are cracking now and they're just, threatening you with little things, I can imagine how it's going to be when they say, well, you can't buy, sell, or trade if
Right. Well,
you don't have
and the
this
thing
mark.
that got me was, you know, all of the churches that required, like, a mask to enter, or
Yes.
even a lot of times churches that were like, "Well, you have to get vaccinated to, like, come to service," or whatever, and I was like, "That is so anti-biblical." Like, do
Hmm.
you not know about the healing power of God? He
Exactly.
very clearly states that in the Bible, so w why are you living per man and man's rule? I don't understand that, and I just I was like, "Okay, well, that we can cross, that church off, we will never go in that one."
Yeah. Well, to me, too, with the whole westernized Christianity and churches here in
Yes.
America, we've never,
Churchiosity, the business of
yeah,
churchiosity.
we've never been fully tested,
Mhm.
like to push comes to shove when it comes to our faith.
Right.
And that was a first test. And I'm sorry to say it, but a lot of churches failed, man,
Yes.
at that.
Yes, absolutely, and, the thing about the business of church these days is that has what has turned a lot of people off,
Mm,
is it's all about a business and making money and bringing in dollars, and it's not about salvation
mhm,
for, people that come there. It's not about actually reading, God's word through the Bible or anything. Most of them are themed sermons where they may do a couple of lines of scripture here and there, and the rest of it is just the pastor talking.
mhm.
And it's like missing the point. And so
Yeah.
those are the same kind of churches that God was against, right?
Yep.
And so we're supposed to be doing organic, small gathering groups on our own, which I can say when, I'm lucky enough to have a chat with somebody, um, and God can be brought into the conversation. We are holding church.
Mhm.
We're talking about God, we're celebrating him, and so that's the way it was meant to be. It's not supposed to be smoke and mirrors and, like we went to a church here locally for a while, and I kept telling my husband, I'm like, feel something is off. I feel very uncomfortable." And they did this, like, series about relationships and stuff, and it was like, well, if you have a relationship and you never fight with your spouse, your relationship is unhealthy, and you need to seek counseling immediately because you're supposed to fight and you're supposed to whatever, and they're, like, going through this whole thing, and I'm like, "What the hell
Yeah.
are they talking about?" I'm
I'm
like,
sure your
because
discernment was going off like, no, this ain't
I'm
right.
like, if you're with the right person and you're evenly yoked, you're not gonna have that friction and those, horrible arguments like every day and stuff like that. And I'm like, this guy's like talking blasphemy. I'm like, I don't like this. And then a little bit later, there were like charges that came out against him from members that were actually like hired people at the church. And so we went to the hearing about it, and they're like, "Oh, well, we looked into ourselves and like that didn't happen and stuff." And my husband and I are looking at each other going, "He is definitely guilty. He is definitely guilty of all of this because
Yeah.
we witnessed some of this." And I'm like, somebody's gaslighting." And so ended up he went to jail
Oh, wow. Okay.
twice. So
Yeah.
just saying, yeah. If you get
Yeah.
that gut feeling in a church,
Yeah, usually, guys, it's
get
just
out.
the Holy Spirit and giving you that, giving you that
Mhm.
discernment, and that's one thing I love about my church is my pastor does like expository preaching,
Right,
so he just reads straight from the Bible, verse by verse,
right.
line by line, chapter by chapter, and he breaks it down. That's it.
Yeah,
And
and that's very limited in churches anymore, so you're very lucky to have a church like that.
Yeah, and he's very adamant about that, and quite honestly, like, he freaking ruined me. 'Cause anywhere if I go hang out with family or we go out of town, it's like, "Oh, man, this isn't I can't stand this."
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and that's my husband grew up in a church like that where they, read from the Bible, straight from the Bible, every single service. I grew up in the Catholic Church.
I did too. I grew up in there.
So very different. I'm very
Yeah.
different now. I would not go back to a Catholic church, and I'm sorry if that hurts anyone's feelings. Um, but yeah, like we were raised in two totally different like environments, and so him and I like trying to find our own, way or path together as somewhere to go was challenging for a while until we finally found a small group. And I know this sounds crazy, but it actually meets at a bar.
Okay.
And what better place to have a church service where you read straight from the Bible than a bar? Because there are a lot of people there that are lost that need help and guidance.
Oh, I agree. What's funny is you said that is because our church does like an out ministry, right?
Hmm.
In our city. So we
Hmm.
have like call it the bar ministry, right? We're
Right,
literally outside serving hot dogs to people,
right,
chatting with them, sobering them up, before they go driving. And we just
right.
and they and they just talk to them about Jesus, and
Yep,
it's been going on for like 15 years.
right.
So
And it's a good thing because if you think about, like another thing that turns people off about God or Christians per se is that, we don't a lot of times live according to what we claim to practice,
yeah.
right? A lot of people don't put that into practice, and they, um, will go to church on Sunday, and then they live like a heathen the rest of the week. Don't show anybody, mercy or grace or patience or, kindness or anything of that nature. And so I think that's what, uh, turns a lot of people off is because people in churches can be some very, I wanna say, deceitful people
Yeah.
in a way.
Very hypocrisy.
Hypocritical. Yeah,
Hypocritical, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. And what's sad about that is that so many people have been turned away from Christianity because of that, because we've had a lot of bad apples.
Mhm.
And and when judgment happens, man, we are definitely going to be judged harshly for that.
Right,
And like like my pastor says, like, look, guys, we only got one shot at this life. We have to make it count.
right.
And each person you look at and talk to are either going to two places, heaven or hell. That's it.
Mhm.
And we have to have like an urgency to live the best we can by according to what Jesus states. And of course we're going to mess up, but as long as we keep trying every day,
Well, and that's part of our sanctification
Mhm.
process, right? That's part of growing, and evolving in your life in Christ is that you don't have to be expected to be perfect all at once. You don't have to like stop cussing all at once and stuff like that because it's a
Process.
process. It
Yeah.
takes time. And so, through those experiences, we get to learn like maybe I didn't handle that situation the best. Okay, how am I going to handle it better when it comes around again in the future? Or, instead of saying a cuss word, you can say something else in its place. Those are things that come over time.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah. Like the longer you're in it, the more and more you're trying to build a relationship with Jesus. The more
mhm,
those things just that are, I say that our struggles, they just you start to slowly just get cut away.
right.
You
Yep.
know.
And it's funny because I've told people before, you have to be grateful for the good and the bad things
Hmm.
that happen to you in life because if you're not, you can't grow. You can't learn a lesson. You can't evolve as a person if you're not grateful for even the bad stuff because you should be learning from every moment of your day,
Hmm. It's a
every
lesson.
day. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree with that. Yeah, man, girl, you preaching it. That's good. Okay, so okay, like the I gotta go back to this autopsy assistant, man. That's some cool stuff. Okay, so what was okay out of your career doing that? What was the craziest, weirdest thing that you came across doing that?
Um, the grossest thing, because I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of crazy. Um, but one of the grossest things that we ever had to do, and it was like one of the very first times, because you have to go in first and like watch and observe so you know how to do it properly. And it was the second time that I was in there watching and learning, and it was a burned up body,
Oh yeah.
like crispy burnt up. And for somebody that has never smelled burning flesh,
Oh, you'll never forget that smell.
no, it is really, really hard to get out of your nostrils. And you will smell it for hours. And so working on this body, the whole outside is burnt, whatever, and the doctor is like trying to, you know, get the rib cage open and stuff and whatever. And he gets down and he nicked the bowels.
Oh,
Oh my word. Talk about a skunk dump sandwich. And it makes your teeth feel like they have like permanent scud like all over them. It is the worst smell because of all those, stomach enzymes and the acids and the gas buildup and all of that in the system. And I was like, okay, so that on top of the burnt flesh, I was so green when I walked out of that room. And it was kind of like a little initiation haha joke that they did because they're supposed to tell you, when you go to do this job, to always have a little jar of Vicks
I
to
put
put
it in your
under your
nose.
nose.
Yes.
No one told me, and they laughed their butts off because we're all, like, pukey, gaggy out in the hallway and, like, that was the worst smell ever. Yeah, and it was like a little initiation, and they're like, you're ready to do it on your own." Mm. Yeah.
It reminds me of when you said that because it was when I think I was about like 6 months in when I was on that I was on like that TAC team, and we had to go to this riot in this prison, and there's a bunch of inmates killed and stuff like that.
Mhm,
Well, they actually barricaded the doors, they were on food strike and all that, and we got there like 2 days later because they were just under like negotiations and stuff, and they weren't letting anybody in that pod. And there was 300 inmates in a pod. Well, there was like two gangs that started fighting in there, and
mhm,
a couple officers were trapped in there, so we had to go in there and get them out. But as soon as they as soon as they blew those doors open, we went in, and a couple other teams went in, and I smelled, pardon my language, shit. I
mhm,
smelled, throw up. I smelled blood, all this stuff. And
mhm,
the guys in front of me were stacked up, ready to go. And the guys in front of me and behind me pulled out this little things of Vicks and started putting it in their nose. And
mhm,
like, get ready. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, trust me. I'm like, all right. So I did it, but it helps, but you still smell it, but it helps out a lot. But
mhm.
yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was like a cutesy little orientation into, like a frat or sorority or something. They're like, "Huh, welcome to the club."
Yeah, now she's in.
"Yay me, I passed initiation." Yeah. So it was
So
all kinds
yeah.
of, like, stuff like that, and, like, I didn't see anything crazy doing autopsies or whatever, but like working around the ER and some of the traumas that came in, whether it was, somebody's face was half blown off from fireworks injuries, or, we had a guy that came in that was homeless,
Mhm.
and he was talking about leg pain, and they went to take his shoes off.
Maggots.
maggots,
Yeah,
and, like, the foot was so gangrene, I was like, "That's another smell that you will
woo.
never, ever forget." So, yeah. But then again, I love it's gross, but I love it.
I know you guys. Okay. So I'm gonna call my buddy out. Like one of my good buddies, Brady. He did this up in Nashville, but he gave me like these pair of scissors you guys use to cut bone,
Mhm,
like certain like smaller bones.
mhm.
They're like so freaking sharp. Well,
Yeah.
I got those in like my med kit. But the only thing I know how to do is just to patch gunshot wounds. That's it. Like pack it and throw on tourniquets, chest seals. That's it. So I'm just
Yeah,
a
see, I've done a lot of stuff like that, and I've had people that have come to my house before that got shot with, like, BB guns or something, and it's like doing all the taking all the little pellets out and stuff. I mean, I like stuff like that, so
yeah. It's
I'm like,
definitely
"Anybody
a good
else?"
trade. It's good handy trade, man, for what's to come. So
Oh,
that's good
yeah.
stuff.
I have, like, a whole entire cabinet of, like, all kinds of stuff, not just bandaging stuff, but, like, walking boots or, arm braces or just, like, all kinds of stuff that people normally wouldn't think about. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
prepared.
so okay. You're married, correct? Yeah, you're
Mhm.
married.
Yep.
Okay. So your husband is he in the medical field too?
He works at a medical facility, but he
Okay.
is not a medical person, no.
Okay. But I'm sure he kind of knows what he's doing a little bit.
He will pass out before anything
Really?
else.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not he passes out at the sight of his own blood.
Okay.
And so, yeah, like I've asked him to like to help hold a flashlight to, do something before or whatever. And he's like, nope. Mm-mm. He's like, can't do it. And I'm like, well, turn your head, look the other way. Or I'm like, I'll put a bandana around your eyes or something. I'm like, like I was trimming the bushes outside one time. It was azalea bushes, and I got this really long splinter that jammed down right under my nail, like, all the way down to, like, the edge of the finger.
Yeah. Oof.
And I'm like, "I need you to hold the flashlight." I'm like, "'Cause I've gotta get the tweezers. I've gotta pull this out." It was a fat splinter. And he's like, "Nope." Uh." He's like, "I can't look." And I'm like, "Just hold the flashlight. That's all I need you to do."
We had to.
He's not a
I'm.
fan.
I love finding and exposing people who have a bad gag reflex.
That would
Bad.
be him. Yeah.
So yeah. So one of our friends, we actually had to go in this unit. I say it was this gang called the Norteños, right? And this guy, he was a snitch for us. So he told us that there were drugs coming in and stuff. So we're getting ready to do like a drug raid. Well, before we got there, they called it in saying that five gang members were on top of this other gang member and they were like beating them to death. So by the time we pulled up and got there, they're already on top of them. Well, you had one guy holding an arm, one guy holding another one, the other two guys on the legs, and one guy on his chest. But it looks like he was doing something. What the freak is he doing? So we roll up there with our weapons, tell the guys to prone out. The medic goes in there. We hold this guy down. We get the cuffs, put the flex cuffs on the guys, take them out, and we're just providing security as the medic is doing work on this guy. Well, it turns out the guy who was on his chest, that gang member, he was sewing his mouth shut with freaking dental floss, right? Because he was a snitch.
Oh,
So he was
no.
sewing his mouth shut, and they cut off all
Mhm.
his tattoos. Well, he was getting he was getting all the basically all like the floss off of him. Well, my buddy next to me was pulling security, and he happened to look, and he was all, "Whoop." So I went behind him. I was all, "Whoop, whoop, whoop," and he was all, shut up."
I'm gonna puke, yep.
He did. It was so funny. Oh man, yeah,
And that's the funniest thing when people have that, response, and people even do that, like, with their animals, right, at
yeah.
home, and, like, their cat or dog or whatever will puke, and then they're like, "Oh, I can't clean that up," and they start gagging, and I'm like, "That's the funniest thing to me because I don't have that problem."
Yeah, like my buddy
Now poop,
Paul. Yeah.
if it's poop stuff, that's another story
Okay.
because, like, the doctor that I worked for such a long time, he was like, he knew I hated poop stuff,
Yeah.
like, hated it. And so we had a patient bring in, like, a Tupperware dish full of looked like pond scum, but it was poop, green, the whole 9
Mm.
yards, and he's like, "You're gonna have to get, all this stool sample kit," and it comes with 4 vials in it, and he's like, "You're gonna have to spoon that poop from the Tupperware into those vials," and I'm like, and he's just standing behind me laughing, he thought that was the funniest thing, and I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Anybody else can have the poop stuff from now on, and I will take the gross things that no one else likes. How about that?" So that's what we did. It was like a trade-off. Like
Yeah,
one nurse loved anything but related, like pilonidal cyst and poop and stuff, and somebody else liked toenails, and I'm like, "Have at it, and I'll take the traumas."
that's hilarious. Yeah, it reminds me of I kind of got my sense of humor for like my stepdad because he was a freak too. But we had this he had this one guy working for him, and he had a bad gag reflex too. But it was like with anything though, and we were at McDonald's. I was like 15, and my stepdad was in front of me, and then his good friend Jim was in front of him, and he was the one that had the bad gag reflex. Well, a poor guy who was over at the front desk for McDonald's. He was covered in acne, and
Mhm.
it was like some of them were like ready to pop too, right? So he's like, here's your burger, sir." And my stepdad went behind my his friend Jim, and he's like, "Hey Jim, that guy's about to add some flavor on your burger." My buddy, his buddy was like, as he was getting his burger, he had to run to the bathroom. Oh, that was so funny.
That's so perfect though, and that's, like, the kinda stuff like, my husband and I love to, like, mess with each other and, like, I don't know, do, like, rotten things and stuff,
Shenanigans,
and
yeah.
that's the kinda stuff that I can totally do to him, and he will, gag every single time, or, I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, look at this on the cat," or whatever, and, it's, like, grosser the better. And he's so easy to gag. I love that stuff.
That's funny.
He can't get me with things like that though, so
Yeah, it's almost kind of like a cheat code with people, It's like, I got you now.
exactly, never let people know your weaknesses.
Exactly, because they'll
Minus
burn you.
poop. I'm just saying minus poop, so no poop.
Cheers to that. Gotcha. Okay, so we'll go. We'll jump from that to okay to so what got you into the whole holistic health area? What's up with that?
Um, After I retired, I was like, "Oh, what am I gonna do?" And I'm the kind of person that can't sit still for very long. I have to have something to do.
Mhm.
And I have to create or do something. And so I was like, "You know what?" First, I started making just basic stuff like, chapstick or soap or shampoo or whatever. And then I was like, why don't I start doing like my own spices, my own vitamins, like all kinds of stuff because I do a lot of things with essential oils.
Mhm.
And I do a lot with herbs and stuff like that. I make specialty teas, I make all kinds of stuff. And so it just kind of morphed into like more and more things that I can do and make and, tinctures or creams or lotions or, antibiotic type stuff or whatever. I don't know. Thank God for giving me the knowledge to be able to do a lot of it, but I was like, "Oh, why don't I if I'm making supplements, if I feel like I need, you know, this or that or the other, I'm just gonna, like, compound them all together." And so I started, you know, doing stuff like that, so I know that I was getting exactly what I needed instead of buying, like, a multivitamin or whatever that most of the time, if you buy them from the store, they're very bad quality,
Yeah.
unless you wanna spend, like, $120 a month for one supplement, And I was like, I can do that like so much cheaper. And so like I dry a lot of my herbs and things like that, or you know, luckily we live in an area where we have access in our yard to a lot of stuff,
Oh, that's good.
you know, and it's like, I'm like, wonder what that is. And so I got a plant identifier app thing and I was like, oh, holy cow. Well, look at that. I can use that. And, you know, like even elderberries and stuff like that. Like
Oh, elderberry
I
syrup.
don't have them on our property now, but our previous house we lived in, we had elderberries and I have like nettle growing in the yard like crazy and, you know, red clover and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, I thought, how can I still like serve other people
Yeah.
and still create something at the same time? And it's like almost like God slapped me in the head and he's like, duh, here,
There
do
you go.
this. And I'm like, fantastic, thank you. And so I've been doing that for probably about 6 years now.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
That's good. Okay, so I got a question because I was doing some digging on that.
Mhm.
My wife, she's big holistic nut now, so that's good.
Mhm.
You ever heard of the Red Pill podcast?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, she's a big follower of that. But okay, so what is your? I'm I'm sure you know what's the whole deal with dandelions? 'Cause I heard it was a good
I
thing.
love dandelion.
Yeah.
Dandelion, you can use literally every part of the flower.
Okay.
The flower, the stem, the leaves, the root. Dandelion is amazing for all kinds of things. You can make tinctures, you can make teas, you can make supplements for it or whatever. It's very good at anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial. It's got a whole host of holistic benefits. And if it's growing in your yard,
We got a gangbusters of that in my yard because I live
oh
on like
yeah.
2 acres, so they just cover my lawn pretty
It's a
close.
it's a good thing though because dandelions show up in your yard when the soil needs reworked.
Okay.
And so, you know, a lot of people think, oh, they're pests and we should spray them and whatever, but they're actually helping to heal your soil.
Okay.
And so, like harvesting them is fantastic, and you can dry them in a dehydrator, you know, and like I said, make tea out of it or whatever, and it's very healing and making
So you
uh
just dry it and just like crush it up, correct?
uh-huh. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and especially the leaves, like, when you dry them, they don't take long at all.
Yeah.
The flower and the root is gonna take a longer in a dehydrator for sure, but you can even make, like, lotion out of it or, you
Oh,
know,
cool.
tinctures and stuff like that because it does have a lot of healing properties, and it's something that pretty much everybody has in their yard.
Yeah. Yeah, because I noticed that we got that, and then I got a bunch of green onions that grow everywhere in my
Oh,
yard.
I love wild onion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we
And
moved,
those are actually really great too because onion has a lot of healing properties as well.
yeah.
And so even like pulling that and like drying the leaves and stuff like that, soups, stews, you know, all kinds of stuff or you know, whatever purpose, whatever other stuff that you want to use to, you know, eat or drink or whatever. A lot of times onions in honey and
Really?
and fermenting it makes a really good, like, cough suppressant.
Ah, okay.
Yep. So, there's good benefits to that, or if you're lucky enough to have, like, the little ground strawberries
Okay.
that grow or, you know, wild blueberries or wild blackberries, anything like that, but yeah, there's so many different, um herbs and things that grow naturally in people's yards that they just think are weeds
Yeah.
that have health benefits, and like I said, we have nettle, purple dead nettle,
Yeah.
and it has so many healing benefits, and not only can you use it as teas, but you can put it in soaps or lotions or tinctures or whatever because it has so many health benefits.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So now, when it goes to your medical practices and stuff, you said you're in holistic living now. Have you had to use that on patients or anything like that on the side?
Mhm. Yeah, I do. I have made a lot of different things for a lot of different people for different ailments. And so, whether it's, the specialty teas that I do have specific herbs targeted at whatever is going on in their body, or supplements, or, magnesium lotion. I do a lot of magnesium lotion for people, things of that nature that they can use. Like magnesium lotion is fantastic
Yeah.
for pain of any kind. But there's also different things that you can put in capsule form that are very healthy for people. And this sounds disturbing, but it- people that are very, very anemic,
Hmm.
they're lacking iron unless, of course, they're copper-based blood, and that goes with what your blood type is. Um, but even if you dry liver or other organ meat
Hmm.
and put it in capsule form, because I don't know a lot of people that are like, "I love liver,"
Yeah.
or "I can't wait to eat a heart," or something like that.
I
But
actually like liver and onions. Is good.
oh, I have PTSD from that as a kid. Because my growing up in the time that we did, our parents, they would make the same meals every night of the week, each week,
Yeah.
and every Friday night was
Routine.
liver and onions and Brussels sprouts,
Oh man, the trifecta right there.
and we were in the clean plate club, so you can't leave
Ooh.
the table until you eat everything on your plate. And as a child growing up in my household, we did not get the chance to put stuff on our plate ourselves. They would put it on there,
You just get what you get. Yeah.
and the longer that liver and onion sits, and Brussels sprouts, the worse they are, and you
Mm.
cannot reheat them. Mm-mm. So I'm like, "Ugh, can't do those anymore," or salmon, because that was another thing. But if you dry, organ meat
Mm.
and then grind it up like in a coffee grinder or whatever, you can put that in capsule form, and then you're getting all the nutrients that you need, all the iron that you need to replenish your system.
That's a trip. That's cool. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, because there's not a lot of people, like I said, that like organ meat, and of course, you can buy supplements, but if you think of it this way, you can go to the store and get a thing of chicken livers. It's like $1.87 here.
Mm.
I don't know everywhere else, but they don't cost much, they're cheap. Or if you have a local butcher or something, you can buy, you know, uh, beef liver or something like that. But you can, like I said, dry those, and it's cheaper than spending $87 a month for supplements that you buy online that
Oh
you're
yeah.
not sure what's in it. You can literally make it yourself for way cheaper.
Yeah. Not only that too, you actually learn a good, I'll say a good trade, but you learn a good skill out of it.
Yes, absolutely. Mhm.
But yeah,
And
I know.
I'm
Pretty
I'm
good.
the type of person that's always been, because I have a friend, a best friend that's a, holistic naturopathic practitioner,
Yeah.
and she is really big on supplements. That's great, but, some of the supplements are so expensive, and then if you're somebody that needs, like, multiple different things, you're looking at $500, $1,000 a month.
Yeah. Who's got that burning a hole in their pocket?
Exactly,
Yeah. No.
especially with the prices of groceries and stuff like that. So, little things that you can do on your own, to and learn those skills, and I would strongly suggest, like, books, um, on herbal remedies and even like essential oils if people have essential oils, because those are very healthy for a lot of things. You have to get a very high quality therapeutic grade essential oil. But if somebody's having like problems with their liver, like their liver enzymes are too high, um, on our hands and our feet, we have what are called Vitaflex points,
Okay.
and those correspond to every organ in the body. And so if you put lemongrass essential oil on the Vitaflex point that corresponds with your liver and rub it in and use that every day, your numbers are going to be better. So think of all the people that are on damaging cholesterol meds.
Yeah.
It's damaging your liver. That's going to be a restorative for your liver. So little things like that. So even books on that, but they have a lot of books, like I said, of you know, homemade remedies or stuff like that. Those are good because if the internet ever goes down,
Yep.
you
You need
have
something
access.
physical.
Yep, you have access to that. Mhm.
Yeah, and that's another like subject in itself with the whole grid shutting down and everything. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's
It's
reality. Like,
coming.
yeah,
It's
it is
coming.
coming. Yeah, like
Yeah.
because me, I'm a pretty big prepper too.
I
But
was gonna say prepper. I'm a prepper.
yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I got stockpiles of food and stuff. But yeah, with that with books, man, that is definitely key. Like with the like you said with that, and then getting
Mhm.
books on how to grow crops and
Yep.
even the guys who don't know how to hunt, like get books on that on how to hunt. Also
Mhm.
how to field dress deers, whatnot. I mean, all that stuff's just knowledge that's priceless, man. Like,
I love that kinda stuff. You probably would never tell that by looking at me,
well, that's a good thing.
but I grew up fishing, hunting, I love stuff like that, and so, I kinda miss that where I'm at now because we don't do that, and my husband doesn't hunt anymore, but I love stuff like that, and I love being able to, like, create with that because imagine the things that you can do not just with the meat from the animal, but, you can make your own, bone marrow. You
Uh-huh.
can make your own beef broth or bone broth or, whatever. You can use the hide or the pelt for something else. Those are good skills to know and to have.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, with that stuff, like that's a good example of our past ancestors, man. They've been doing that for years,
Mhm.
survival.
Yep.
And then now everyone's just stuck on these cell phones, and to me,
Right?
their time sucks. They're just distractions, to keep us stupid. And like
Yeah,
you
and
said, when the grid goes down, oy vey, that's going to be a bad day
And
for a lot
some
of
people
people.
are gonna have, a mental breakdown when that
Yeah,
happens, right? Because they're so tied to their phones or their devices. I am so opposite of that. I hate technology,
yeah,
and I love to sit outside, and even in the winter, I will literally put a snowsuit on and go sit outside in the cold.
there you go. Well, it's good for your body too.
Yeah, I have to have that, like, outside time, and I have to be, like, out in nature and around nature literally all the time. That's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why with me and the guys that we actually love cryptid hunting. That's our bread and butter. Like we love being out in nature, being out in the mountains, like
Mhm,
just like harnessing our like bushcraft skills, stuff like that. It's not just
mhm.
about we're gonna go hunt us a skinwalker or a wendigo, but we like being out in nature and just enjoy things that God created and
It's more
test
healing for
yourself.
you too.
Yeah, and grounding's a big
Oh,
thing
yeah.
too.
Yep.
You know.
Although, we have to be careful,
Yeah.
here. We have these interesting, you ever heard of a red velvet ant?
No, I have not.
They also call them cow killers. They look like red velvet, that's why they got their name. They are actually a type of ground wasp, but they call them ants for some guy. they look like ants, but their sting can actually take down a cow.
Holy crap.
We have them in our yard.
Oh man.
I have to be very careful what where I step at.
That sucks.
Don't want to step on that or fire ants or yeah, no, that's not fun. But yeah, and don't step on stinging nettle plants because that they have little prickly spines on them.
Oh man. That's where you guys located at? What state?
Tennessee.
Oh yeah, we are too. Yeah, we're in
Are you
Tennessee.
really?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, actually live south of Nashville. Murfreesboro.
Really? Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
All
me and
right.
Zook. So
Well, I'm closer to Memphis.
gotcha. Okay. Man, I found out a lot of people are in Tennessee or close to Tennessee. People we interview and talk to and stuff.
Oh, that's
It's great. There's a
fantastic.
lot of people moving to Tennessee. I noticed that,
Yeah,
especially
well,
from the West Coast. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, oh good. They're gonna bring their policies here.
I know, I know, I
Fun,
know,
fun
I know,
times.
I know, and that's one of the reasons why we actually moved out of Colorado because it was just getting bad after they legalized marijuana and all that.
Well,
Well, they brought like the riffraff, I should say, is
right.
when that happened.
Well, and I'm assuming that they've already passed it, but they were also trying to legalize like psychedelics.
Hmm.
And I thought, "Oh, what could go wrong with somebody on psychedelics driving a vehicle
Hmm. Yeah,
while they're seeing
when they're having a trip.
stuff?" I was like, that should be entertaining. I think I'll pass on a
Yeah,
vacation there
it'll be
anytime
like it'll
soon.
look like Grand Theft Auto. You know what I mean?
And that what in the world could go wrong? I'm serious. Yeah.
Well, the thing that's crazy was that I was kind of watching. I was watching the news. I call that fear porn. But
Mhm. Yes.
um, I can't believe Trump won that state.
Mhm.
That tripped me out. I was like, hmm.
Well, I think it is because, no matter where you stand on the political spectrum, right?
Hmm,
People are struggling. They're having a hard time, because the inflation is terrible, regardless of what Green Jean Pierre says. Inflation has not come down. It has gone up. People can't afford homes or food or whatever, and I think people are just
tired of it.
yeah, they're sick of it, and so even if they're Democrat, they've been Democrat their whole entire life or whatever, they're feeling the effects too,
Mhm.
same as everybody else, and so I think people are just sick and tired of living in those conditions.
Yeah, instead of the president of the United States, we have a resident of the United States in that place. You know.
From the old age home, exactly. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Class clown. Yeah,
Okay.
he's an interesting individual, and I did not watch his speech. I just heard there was a lot of, like, angry yelling.
Yeah, I did for a little bit, and I had to cut it off. Like I'm like, this is retarded. I'm not going to do it.
I'm losing brain cells, I must shut it down.
Yeah, I literally wasted like 15 minutes of my life. I can't get back, but it is what it is. But other than that, okay, so we'll move on to conspiracies. Okay, so you said you kind of dabble into that. So what are you into on that on conspiracy wise?
Oh my gosh, there are so many things. One of my favorite things I ever covered, was the Vatican and,
Oh,
the
yes.
Vatican Sea and, like, all the shady business with IMF funds and, how they were running through, the Bank of the Vatican. Um, and let's see, of course, 911 stuff or 9/11 stuff, but
Yeah,
that's been done so much.
yeah, we've done that. Yeah.
I love diving into, like, CIA experiments,
Oh yeah,
um,
like the
different
Montauk
psychology
Project, MK
experiments.
Ultra. Yeah.
Mhm. Done a lot on the Tavistock Institute.
What is
That's a
that?
very you've never heard of the Tavistock Institute.
Ah, enlighten me.
It's a very interesting, thing. It was funded and started um, by the House of Windsor,
Okay.
UK Parliament, the Rothschild family, the Schiff banking family, so Adam Schiff's family, and a bunch of other entities or whatever. It was set up over in the UK, and their primary goal, primary objective when they very first started was to see what the breaking point of soldiers was
Okay.
during the World War One. And so they studied that, and then that morphed over time into this giant umbrella corporation that has transgender surgery stuff under it. It has marriage counseling under it. It has all kinds of therapy things, but they are used for nefarious purposes. They are like blackmail centers.
Yeah.
Um, even their trans policy, I can't remember what the name of the actual place was, but they were investigated because every person that they pushed into transitioning was found to be mildly or medium to severely mentally handicapped
Okay.
or very limited functioning autistic.
Yeah.
And so that was investigated, but their marriage services, their counseling services, it's like a blackmail ring.
Yeah.
So you go in, you tell them information, and then they use that against you, kind of like they did against their soldiers
Hmm.
when they very first started, where they basically have enough information to bribe or blackmail or turn you against family members or whatever. It's a very interesting institute with lots of little tentacles under it. They're also into our education system.
Hmm.
They're partnered with the UN. They're the ones that help to usher in the curriculum for critical race
The
theory,
whole woke system. Yeah.
gender ideology, fetishes are part of your gender now. All pedophilia is normal. All of that stuff comes from Tavistock Institute. Um, Freud was part of Tavistock Institute. So were a lot of other people. So were a lot of world leaders, a lot of presidents in the United States. And so they train them there and then they instill them over here in different positions of authority, stuff like that. They're involved with the Council of 300, the whole 9 yards. It's like a giant, messy little package.
Big melting pot of crookedness. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So, question about that. Okay. So, I was talking to one of my buddies. He was doing a report on a lot of things, and he noticed that along with that, China. Okay, so I guess with the colleges or whatnot, whoever's the biggest, whoever funds the most
Uh-huh.
for colleges like Yale, Harvard, stuff like that, they have a
Mhm.
hand in picking the curriculum out.
Correct.
Okay, so when he was doing that, he noticed China has been
Mhm.
funding a lot of these colleges since like the 60s. And
Yes.
the more and more, and then the whole ideology of what's broken out now into the streets,
Yes.
China has a big hand in that.
Mhm.
And with that, he was stating that the only way to crumble a one world power, like basically the United States, Russia, stuff like that, but only way to crumble a number one power, basically like the United States, is to go from the within. Because
Right.
if you try to attack
Absolutely.
them without, it's impossible. Try to
Right.
attack us from the outside, it's impossible. But yeah, they've been China plays a long game for sure. I tell you that.
Yes. And we have allowed it because they do a I can't remember what it's called, but it's a partnership between the United States and China where it's like these young scientific leaders or whatever that are coming out of our you know, top universities or whatever, and then they go to China, spill the secrets. We had, was it 2019? Maybe 2020. There were like 3 different professors that they arrested like right in a row for being part of this program and basically stealing and selling secrets to China from this program.
Yeah, almost like spies, basically.
Yeah, and they were being paid, you know, their salary from Harvard. And then they were also being paid a monthly salary from the Chinese government for for their employment, basically.
Oh man. Yeah.
But they get into every facet of stuff, even like the medical industry that was so infiltrated, you know, back in the early 1900s when, you know, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and all of that decided to take down holistic medications,
Yeah.
holistic practitioners, holistic schools, and usher in the allopathic system that they did, and our pharmacy system that was modeled after the system in Germany that they brought here, or even, you know, like during Operation Paperclip when they brought
All
all
those
of those
scientists,
scientists,
Germans,
doctors,
Nazis. Yeah.
whatever. Our very first chemotherapy here in the United States came from 2 scientists that were brought over in Operation Paperclip, were installed in one of the universities that I really dislike, and it was mustard gas.
Mm,
Mustard gas was outlawed, um, in the, Geneva Convention,
yeah.
but they brought it here and used that mustard nitrogen to be our very first chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So, introducing poison to people. So, all of that stuff, it all ties together because those people were moved over here. They were even moved into Catholic churches. There is a, um, one of the head SS soldiers that did like, not a soldier, doctor, uh, that did experimentation on the twins and all of that stuff under Mengele.
Yeah.
He was brought over here during Operation Paperclip, and he was put in the Catholic Church as a priest.
Mm,
His name is Varial Trifa,
okay.
and it wasn't until, one of the parishioners who happened to immigrate here after all of that happened, he discovered this guy, and he was like, that's the guy that ran the experiments on us." And it took, I don't remember what it was, like 15, 20 years of investigation before they actually found the paperwork and all of that stuff where he was moved here and instilled in the Catholic Church.
Oh man, that's a trip. I
Mhm.
believe it, 100%. Yeah.
And I hate to say this for those that are still following the Catholic faith, that's up to you. But the Catholic Church has also been involved in a lot of scientific experiments on orphans and, you know, children with disabilities and stuff. There is a very famous one that was in Willowbrook, New York, that the Catholic Church helped to sponsor.
Does that tie in with the Cabbage Patch Kids theory?
No,
Okay.
this is disturbing, but they were like, all of these kids are getting hepatitis, and this was in like a home for disabled
Yeah.
and mentally challenged children. And so the Catholic Church partnered with this facility, and they were like, "Well, all these kids are getting hepatitis." Of course, the facility was dirty and like subpar living standards and stuff. They were actually feeding contaminated stool. So feeding poop to these kids, and the doctor was like, "So what? They're all gonna get it anyway because they all live here. So what? What if I did that? It's no big deal."
Jeez,
So sanctioned by the Catholic Church.
damn,
Great.
man. Yeah, that's another freaking entity in itself, the Catholic Church, when it
Mhm.
comes to the Vatican and then like the Smithsonian's and all that. And
Yep.
yeah, man, that's a whole nother ball game on that.
Mhm.
But what's funny is you talk about mustard gas. My grandfather, he, I loved him to death. Him and I were really close, but he fought in World War II,
Mhm.
and he worked at the Army Depot
Mhm.
in southern Colorado. But he lived in this little town called Avondale, and about a good 10 miles away from his house was one of the Army depots, and he
Mhm.
worked there. And they'd have like these alarms that would go off, right?
Right.
And I was like, what, Grandpa, what is that? And he's like, well, those are, we're basically doing like practice runs. I'm like, okay, what's up with that? And he's like, well, if if all this mustard gas leaks, and
Mhm.
so he's trying to give us time to get out of here, but it just we're screwed. So, but I guess they were getting the containers of mustard gas and they were just burying them. That's
Mhm.
all they were doing, was just burying
And what could possibly go
them.
wrong with that?
Yeah, I was like, what?
I I don't I mean, because back in the day, they were using metal containers,
Yes.
right? Metal corrodes,
Yep.
especially being exposed in the ground to, groundwater or shifting soil or whatever. We had the same thing because I grew up in Indiana, and Indiana has a very large stockpile of VX. And they also have like sarin gas there. And I'm like, like if anybody decides they're going to attack that facility, like anybody remotely close to there,
Yeah, it's
they're going to
over.
be dead.
It's over. Yeah.
No, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But what they do, though. I mean, they store the chemicals just like they store uh toxic, deadly, what we've been called or told were diseases or illnesses, right?
Mhm.
So, like vials of Ebola and stuff like that, and they save them. They have them at all of these facilities, all this stuff that is super duper deadly, and then they do all this, genetic manipulation with CRISPR Cas9 technology and stuff like that to get it to mutate to see like how it can spread faster, or if they can get it to, infect something that it normally wouldn't infect, or whatever. And they literally have these things stored in all of these facilities all over the world. Hence all the money that's going to Ukraine. We have
Mhm.
96 facilities in Ukraine. We have 96 bio facilities.
Yeah.
And people probably don't know this, but in 1970, we signed onto um, a bioweapons treaty
Yeah.
that we were not going to use, store, manufacture bioweapons of any nature for any reason, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these other nations signed on to, with the exception of like 13. Um, but we don't adhere to that. And there is no reading this treaty, there is no safeguards in place for any of that because the government would investigate the government
Yeah.
the way it is written. So why did they even put it on paper?
Yeah. I guess just to save face to the public. I don't know. Just
Look what we
karma.
did.
Yeah. Hey guys, we're
We're
good.
still doing it today, but don't worry, nothing to see here. Look over there.
Mm-hmm. That's where you get your false flags and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Man.
So yeah, I love digging down like all kinds of rabbit holes and finding out like all kinds of stuff I never knew, like government sanctioned things that the CIA ran or,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, what's the trip is you talked about like the facility in your area and then the area I lived at, and when I was living in Colorado Springs, like the whole NORAD, right?
Mhm.
And then what we're recently talking about before the recording was when I, yeah, when I went underneath the Denver International Airport, like, and then I had somebody do some digging, and it totally blew my mind. He showed me a blueprint from 2011. This is
Mhm.
older, of a blueprint of all the railways underneath the United States.
Mhm.
Goes from NORAD to the Dolzy base to Area 51 to California to Washington. It's like,
Right.
holy crap. And it led to the Army Depot where my grandfather worked at forever,
Mhm.
of them transporting stuff. And
Right.
that's how they can transport things, without the public even knowing it.
Right. And you know, they can say all they want that that's not a thing. It's not there's nothing under the airport. There's nothing under the cities or whatever, but there literally are tons of areas where even like truckers that have said, like I was told to drive this load or whatever, and they drive down underground.
Hmm.
And they've got these like ginormous bunkers or areas where they're dumping foods and stuff down there. It's not just the wealthy building these things at their homes. That's literally all over the place. So, I mean, dumbs exist.
Yep.
Everybody knows that. Which, you know what I find interesting? Somebody brought this up before. Like a map of the stars,
Hmm.
like coincides with dumbs on
Huh.
the ground. And I was like, whoa. And they like took a picture and like,
Overlaid it.
yeah. And I was like, whoa. I'm
Off
like,
the trip.
was that like,
That's by design.
yeah, purposeful? I'm like, that is the most interesting thing I've ever seen or, heard about. Like, I never even thought about that, but there's always something that I look into and I'm like, whoa, what?
That's a trip. It's almost like that saying, God, man, sometimes ignorance is bliss.
I know.
The more you know, the more you like realize you don't know.
My husband and I were actually talking about that before we started recording. And he's like, he's like, I feel like I know uh absolutely nothing about anything. He's like, because like like every day it's something else. He's like, and I don't really know a thing. I'm like, we're supposed to be humble about that, right? And admit when we don't know stuff and admit when we're wrong about what we
Hmm.
know. Yeah. Hard for some people though.
Yeah, it's when that pride comes in. But you're absolutely
Mhm.
right, man. Like longer I've been doing this, the more and more I realize I have no idea.
Mhm.
So
I can just look into something and be like, "Oh my goodness." Like that's something I didn't know and then I have to let it go. Like some
yeah,
people dwell like on things that they learn and I'm like, "No, I have to let that go because I don't want like stressful things
yeah.
taking up residence in my life. I won't allow it."
Oh, I agree. I just same here. I just do enough just to educate myself, and that's it. It is
Mhm.
what it is.
Yep, done with it.
The world, the world can go into hell in a handbasket, but to me, Jesus is still on that throne. So whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's what, like all the people that are fearful all the time of what's going to happen tomorrow or what's going to happen in the future or whatever. My whole outlook on that is I believe in God, so his plan is going to play out and he knows where I'll be in that plan and I'm okay with that. Like if I need to die for whatever reason, that I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I've had a good life. I don't mind.
Oh yeah, I agree. And yeah, same here. just, it is what it is. There ain't nothing I can do to stop it or anybody
Mhm,
else. His plan's gonna flourish and just do what it needs to do no matter what. So, but
mhm.
the objective is just to plant seeds in people and tell them the truth and just go
Right.
from there.
You know, interesting thing we were talking about earlier because, like, during the Super Bowl, a lot of the stuff was, like, alien centered in the commercials.
Oh yeah,
There was, like, so much of it, and so we were watching some show tonight, and I was like, "Oh, look, another alien commercial." It was, like, from apartments.com. They were finding aliens, like, apartments. And I said, "I wonder why, like, everything is alien-centered with commercials and stuff now." And he said, "You know," he's like, when the rapture happens," he's like, "they don't want people to believe in the rapture, and so that's gonna be their excuse
yeah. It's like
that
Project Bluebeam.
that the aliens are the ones that, like, took all these people,
Yeah,
and that's why all these people disappeared." And I'm like, "Oh." I never thought of it that way.
yeah.
Just one thing that just goes in one ear and out the other when I'm seeing all this
Oh,
alien stuff, and I'm like, "What?
yeah. You've heard of Ellie Marzulli, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, he's another Christian. He's a big proponent on aliens, right, and what they really are, stuff like
Mhm.
that. And what he wrote this book, it was called The Cosmic Chess Match. And he said like the great deception is when, that does happen to where at the same time that does happen, they're going to blame it on aliens, right?
Mhm.
And they're going to come down and totally try to wipe Christianity off the face of the earth, saying it was all false, it was BS. We're here to help you guys, da 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 da. And that's going to be like the great deception. A lot of people are gonna like their faith's gonna fail them.
Mhm.
From it's an example, like it says in Thessalonians and Revelations, like men's hearts are gonna fail them from seeing what's coming on the earth.
Right.
And yeah, it's just really, really interesting seeing everything play out.
Right.
And with the whole Hollywood, with just the government, with the television and all that. It's just to me, it's a big psyop, and it's mentally, even though people don't believe, but it's mentally projected in your head and getting you prepared without you even
Mhm.
knowing it. Like they're throwing it in your face, like they're just getting
Right,
you.
and
Yeah,
I think a lot of that is we're so, like, desensitized to
exactly.
everything, and it's like they can literally throw whatever they want at us, and we're just like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's awful." That happened, and, like, we just
Next day, move on.
c
Yeah.
yeah, we're, like, conditioned to accept, like, whatever the case may be, but I am disturbed by a lot of the things that they've done, like, they're using deceased bodies for fertilizer now?
Yes, I heard about that. And they're okay. There's this thing I was. Oh God, I forgot who I was talking to. I think I was talking to Zook about this, but they were using dead bodies too, and also they were dumping it in the water system.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I forgot what was that. I forgot where it was at, but what state it was in. But they were doing that.
So, the interesting thing about that is think about what water does to your tissues when you're in the bath too long,
Hmm.
right? And then we're going to start seeing all kinds of new, quote, diseases, ailments, illnesses, whatever you want to call it, popping up because that goes all the way back to the miasmatic theory, where it was dead, rotting, decaying things in our environment that were causing, like, us to be ill.
Yeah,
So, like, rotting carcasses in the streams and the water systems or whatever, because there was no plumbing at the time, there was no, like, they're pooping in a bucket and throwing it out in the street or whatever. It was a very dirty, disturbing, disgusting time. That's exactly where we're gonna go back to, by putting dead carcasses in the water supply.
Mm-hmm.
That's asking for a whole host of interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gross.
Man.
I was just sitting there this afternoon and I was having a cup of George.
Said a Joe. Oh man.
Sorry about that. I had to sneak that in there. Yeah.
Cup of Jorge in Spanish.
Taking a shower with Jeff.
That's funny. Oh man. Uh, but other than that, yeah, we're coming up on an hour and a half. But anyways, like I said, yeah, like I said, it's been good. Is anything else on your mind you want to talk about or let the
I
public know or
am
anything?
I am good, my dear.
All right, sweetness. Okay, so where can people find you at? If they need to get a hold of you, where can they go find your podcasts? Like, where can people get a hold of you at? You got
Okay.
any questions on holistic living or anything like that?
You can find Deplorable Nation on every podcast platform. Video versions are on Rumble at Deplorable Nation Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at No Janet KNOW. You can find me on Instagram at Deplorable Janet, or you could find me on Facebook at Janet Fox.
Right on,
That's
G.
it.
Right on. Hey, this has been good. This has been went on a like a lot went on like a lot of trails, but it
Lots of
was good.
tangents.
It was good. It was good. And but yeah, like I said, yeah, it was awesome. I'm glad Highly hooked us up, and we're definitely gonna have to do a roundtable for sure. Us,
Absolutely.
Heidi, and a couple other people, so we can get into depth on more about the Vatican and all this stuff. So what's going to happen. So, but
Mhm.
other than that, if you can send me all your links via email, and then I'll have Zook plug
Yep,
them in. That way people
sure
can
will.
find you. So, yeah, and then we'll keep in touch,
Absolutely.
keep chit chatting, and yeah, we'll sign off. Don't go yet on the recording, but yeah, like I said, we'll chat a little bit, and then yeah, then we'll
All
go.
right.
So.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Janet, appreciate it. And guys, like I said, Zook ain't here, but he sends his love. And all right, guys, but if you got any questions, just hit us up. You got any experience there? You guys want to talk about something, just hit us up via email. It's at cryptidwarfare@gmail.com, or if not, find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you guys can look up Janet, we will definitely plug all her areas that she's in the show notes. Like you said, she's got Instagram, she's got all that stuff. So if you guys can, go support her podcast. It's going to be some good stuff. And yeah, we're out. And guys, just remember, we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principalities and rulers of this age. So, all right, guys, keep your heads up. And yeah, have a good, blessed week. And we're out.